A young woman wearing a $3,000 designer dress strutted into Judge Judy's courtroom like she was walking onto a yacht in the Hamptons. On her wrist sparkled a Cartier bracelet that cost more than most people's monthly rent. In her hand, she carried a limited edition Hermes handbag, and her professionally styled hair and flawless makeup screamed money and privilege. This young woman's name was Madison Elizabeth Crawford, and she was the 23-year-old daughter of Senator Robert Crawford, one of the most powerful state senators in Connecticut with 15 years of political influence behind his name. Madison had graduated from Yale University, though she made sure everyone knew it within the first 5 minutes of meeting her. She was here today because her former college roommate, Jessica Martinez, was suing her for $8,500. The reason? Madison had thrown a wild party that completely destroyed Jessica's laptop, textbooks, and personal belongings while Jessica was away visiting her sick grandmother. When Jessica asked Madison to pay for the damage, Madison refused, claiming it was just a party and Jessica was overreacting like a drama queen. But what made this case truly shocking was what Madison said when Jessica threatened legal action. Madison looked her former roommate dead in the eyes and said, "Do you know who my father is? He could end your family's business with one phone call." She threatened Jessica with her father's political connections, weaponizing the power of a state senator against a regular college student who just wanted her destroyed property replaced. Madison came to Judge Judy's courtroom expecting to breeze through these proceedings just like she breezed through every other consequence-free moment of her privileged life. What she had in mind was simple. Show up, let the judge lecture her for maybe 10 minutes, have her father's checkbook solve the problem, and then go post about it on Instagram with some eye-rolling caption about annoying legal drama. However, what Madison didn't know, what she couldn't possibly understand with her bubble-wrapped, senator's daughter worldview, was that Judge Judy's courtroom doesn't care about your last name, your father's political position, or how much your handbag costs. And Madison was about to make a mistake that would shock millions of viewers and destroy her carefully curated social media image forever. While Judge Judy was reading her sentence, Madison did something so disrespectful, so brazenly entitled, that it would become one of the most talked-about moments in courtroom television history. She rolled her eyes, checked her phone, and told Judge Judy that these proceedings were beneath someone of her background. This wasn't just garden-variety disrespect. This was a senator's daughter genuinely believing that rules, judges, and basic human decency simply didn't apply to people like her. What happened next would become the most expensive eye roll in political family history, a moment that would cost Madison her reputation, her influencer brand, and her father's patience. If you've watched this far, don't miss the end of the video. Like the video, sit back, and enjoy listening to the story because what you're about to witness is the trial of a spoiled senator's daughter standing before a judge who absolutely does not care who your daddy is. Enjoy listening. Friday afternoon, 2:30 p.m., Judge Judy's courtroom. The bailiff's voice rang out clearly. The case of Jessica Martinez versus Madison Crawford. Madison walked in while actively texting on her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen as if she were in her bedroom rather than a court of law. She didn't put the phone away immediately when she reached the defendant's table. Instead, she stood there, still scrolling, only glancing up when the bailiff firmly asked her to put the device away. When she finally tucked it into her designer handbag, she did so with an audible sigh that everyone in the courtroom could hear. She looked around the room with visible boredom, the same expression you might have while waiting in an unnecessarily long line at the DMV. Judge Judy looked up from her papers with her characteristic sharp intelligence and no-nonsense demeanor. "Good afternoon, Ms. Crawford." Madison's response was casual to the point of insult. "Hi. Not good afternoon, Your Honor. Not even a respectful good afternoon, Judge. Just hi, the same way you might greet a barista while ordering your overpriced latte." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed slightly in that signature look that regular viewers know means trouble is coming. But she maintained her professional composure and dove straight into the matter at hand. "Ms. Crawford, you're being sued for $8,500 by your former roommate, Jessica Martinez. She claims you threw a party that destroyed her property including her laptop and textbooks, and then refused to compensate her for the damages. She also alleges that you threatened her with your father's political connections when she said she would take legal action. How do you respond to these charges? Madison rolled her eyes in a way that was so dramatic it could probably be seen from the back row. Your Honor, this whole thing is completely ridiculous. Jessica is being so dramatic about what was just a simple college party. Nothing that happened was actually my fault, and honestly, I think she's just jealous of my lifestyle and looking for a way to get money out of my family. The courtroom atmosphere was thick with tension. Jessica sat at the plaintiff's table with organized evidence folders in front of her, looking professional despite her obvious nervousness. She was a regular college student facing off against a senator's daughter, and the power imbalance was clear to everyone watching. Meanwhile, Madison kept checking her expensive watch and sighing as if being held against her will. Audience members in the courtroom gallery exchanged shocked glances at her attitude. Judge Judy's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Ms. Crawford, I suggest you take these proceedings seriously. You're facing a significant judgment here. Madison's response dripped with entitled dismissiveness. I am taking it seriously. I'm here, aren't I? I showed up. What more do you want? The murmurs of disbelief rippled through the courtroom like a wave, and even the court stenographer paused her typing to look up in shock at the sheer audacity. Judge Judy turned her attention to Jessica Martinez, whose hands were clasped nervously on the table in front of her organized evidence folders. Ms. Martinez, please explain to the court exactly what happened and why you're suing Ms. Crawford for $8,500. Jessica took a deep breath and began speaking clearly despite her obvious nervousness. Your Honor, Madison and I were roommates at Yale for 2 years. We shared an apartment off campus during our junior and senior years. On March 15 of this year, I had to leave town for 4 days to visit my grandmother who had suffered a stroke and was in the hospital. Before I left, I specifically asked Madison not to have any parties while I was gone because I had expensive equipment and important textbooks in the apartment that I needed for my engineering classes. Madison promised me she wouldn't have anyone over. She looked me right in the eye and said I could trust her. Judge Judy leaned forward with interest. So what happened when you were away? Jessica's voice wavered slightly but remained steady. Your Honor, Madison threw a massive party with over 60 people crammed into our small 2-bedroom apartment. The neighbors called the police twice because of the noise. When I came back 4 days later, I walked into complete chaos. There was alcohol spilled everywhere, broken glass on the floor, furniture overturned, and my personal belongings were destroyed. My laptop, which cost $2,000 and had all my engineering coursework and projects on it, had an entire bottle of vodka spilled directly on it. It was completely ruined and wouldn't even turn on. My textbooks, which cost over $800 for the semester, had been thrown into the bathtub as some kind of prank during the party. They were soaking wet and completely destroyed. Family photographs that I had hanging on my bedroom wall had been ripped down and torn. Some of them were irreplaceable pictures of my late grandfather. Judge Judy's expression grew more serious. What was Ms. Crawford's reaction when you confronted her about this destruction? Jessica's eyes began to water but she maintained her composure. Your Honor, when I came home and saw the devastation, Madison was in the living room laughing about the party with 2 of her friends. They were looking at videos on their phones and giggling. When I asked her what happened and showed her my destroyed laptop and textbooks, she just shrugged and said, "Parties happen. Things get broken. That's just how it is." I was devastated, Your Honor. That laptop had 2 years of my engineering work on it. Those textbooks were essential for my classes, and I'm on a tight budget. My family runs a small business and they sacrificed a lot to send me to Yale. I couldn't just replace everything easily like it was nothing. Judge Judy nodded with understanding. So what did you do next? I asked Madison to please replace my damaged items. I showed her the receipts and told her the exact amounts. I wasn't trying to cheat her or get extra money. I just wanted to be made whole again. At first, she told me to get over it and stop being so dramatic. She said that college is about having fun and I was being uptight and boring. When I insisted that she needed to take responsibility, she told me she'd think about it. But days went by and she did nothing. She wouldn't respond to my texts or calls. Finally, after 2 weeks of being ignored, I told her that if she didn't pay for the damages, I would have no choice but to take her to small claims court. That's when everything changed. Judge Judy's eyes sharpened. What do you mean, everything changed? Jessica pulled out her phone and held it up. Your Honor, that's when Madison threatened me. She looked me right in the eyes and said, "Do you know who my father is? Senator Robert Crawford. He could destroy your family's little business with one committee vote. You really want to mess with someone who has that kind of power?" I was terrified, Your Honor. My parents own a small restaurant supply company in Connecticut. The thought of a senator targeting my family's livelihood because I wanted my laptop replaced was horrifying. But I knew what she did was wrong, and I couldn't let her bully me into silence. Judge Judy held out her hand. Do you have evidence of these threats? Jessica immediately produced printed text messages and handed them to the bailiff, who delivered them to Judge Judy. Your Honor, these are text messages Madison sent me after I said I would sue her. Judge Judy read aloud from the messages, her voice filled with controlled anger. LOL, you think you're going to sue me? My dad is a senator. He'll bury your family. Another message reads, you're nobody. I'm connected. Drop this before you regret it. And another, my father knows every judge in this state. Good luck with that lawsuit, peasant. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Even the bailiff looked stunned. Judge Judy held up the photographs Jessica had submitted showing the destroyed apartment. Your Honor, I also have photographs of the damage, receipts for my laptop and textbooks, and a statement from our neighbor who witnessed the party and can confirm there were over 60 people there. Judge Judy examined each piece of evidence carefully while Madison sat at the defendant's table inspecting her manicured nails with complete disinterest. Ms. Martinez, did anyone else witness these threats in person? Yes, Your Honor. Our mutual friend Sarah was present when Madison first threatened me face to face. She was shocked and told Madison she was out of line, but Madison just laughed and said Sarah didn't understand how the world really works for people like her. Judge Judy set down the evidence and turned her piercing gaze toward Madison, who was now scrolling through her phone under the table, completely oblivious to the growing storm of judicial fury building on the bench. Judge Judy's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. Ms. Crawford, put that phone away immediately and pay attention. You've heard the plaintiff's testimony. You've seen the photographs of the destruction you caused. You've heard your own threatening text messages read aloud. What exactly is your explanation for this behavior? Madison slowly looked up from her phone with an expression that suggested she was being deeply inconvenienced by having to participate in her own trial. She slipped the phone into her purse with another dramatic sigh and finally addressed the court. Your Honor, with all due respect, Jessica is making this sound way worse than it actually was. Yes, I had a party. College students have parties all the time. That's completely normal. It's part of the college experience. The apartment wasn't even that bad, and most of the damage that happened was just accidents. People spill drinks at parties. That's what happens. It's not like I intentionally destroyed her stuff. Judge Judy's eyebrows raised in that signature expression of disbelief that her viewers know so well. Ms. Crawford, this wasn't just spilled drinks. Her laptop was destroyed. Her textbooks were thrown in a bathtub. Her family photographs were torn off the walls. How exactly do you explain that level of destruction as mere accidents? Madison shifted in her seat and shrugged with casual indifference. Your Honor, honestly. Jessica shouldn't have left her expensive stuff just lying around if she didn't want anything to happen to it. If you have valuable things and you know someone might have people over, you need to secure them properly. You put them away somewhere safe. This is kind of on her for not being more careful and responsible with her belongings. The courtroom erupted in audible gasps. Several audience members shook their heads in disbelief. Jessica's mouth fell open in shock at the victim blaming. Even the court stenographer stopped typing momentarily to process what she'd just heard. Judge Judy's face transformed into an expression of controlled fury that would soon become a viral screenshot across social media platforms. So let me understand this correctly, Ms. Crawford. You're telling me that it's the plaintiff's fault that you destroyed her property at a party that you threw without her permission in an apartment that she pays rent for? Madison nodded as if this logic was completely obvious and reasonable. I'm saying that accidents happen at parties, and people need to be realistic about that. You can't invite a bunch of people over and expect nothing to ever get damaged. That's just naive. Jessica should have known better. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous calm. Ms. Crawford, why didn't you offer to replace anything that was damaged at your party? Madison's answer revealed the depth of her privilege in a way that even her previous statements hadn't captured. Because honestly, Your Honor, Jessica comes from a very different background than I do. An $800 laptop really isn't that expensive in the grand scheme of things. She could have just asked her parents to buy her a new one, or she could have used one of the computer labs on campus. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I mean, my father bought me 3 laptops during college because I kept wanting upgrades. It's really not the tragedy she's making it out to be. Judge Judy's voice became sharp and cutting. Ms. Crawford, what exactly do you do for a living? How do you support yourself? Madison sat up a bit straighter, clearly proud of her answer. I'm between opportunities right now, Your Honor. I'm exploring my options and figuring out what career path speaks to me. But my father provides for me financially, so I don't really need to worry about money or bills or any of that stressful stuff. He's Senator Robert Crawford, so our family is very comfortable. I'm fortunate that I can take my time finding the right fit instead of just taking any job. Judge Judy's expression could have frozen fire. So you don't work, you live off your father's money, and you think $800 isn't expensive because you've never had to earn a dollar in your entire privileged life. Is that accurate? Madison seemed oblivious to the trap she was walking into. Well, I mean, I wouldn't put it exactly like that, but yes, I'm fortunate to come from a successful family. Your Honor, I really think Jessica is trying to take advantage of my family's success here. She knows my father is a senator and she sees this as an opportunity to get money out of us. This whole lawsuit is really about her being jealous of my lifestyle and the opportunities one have. She's always been a little resentful of the things I have and the connections my family has. Judge Judy's voice became ice cold. Ms. Crawford, did you or did you not threaten the plaintiff with your father's political position? Madison hesitated for the first time, realizing she was on dangerous ground. I mean, Your Honor, I might have mentioned that taking legal action could be complicated for her. But I was just trying to help her understand the bigger picture. I was trying to save her the trouble and stress of pursuing something that wasn't going to go her way. It wasn't really a threat. It was more like friendly advice from someone who understands how the world actually works. Judge Judy held up the printed text messages. Let me read your friendly advice, Ms. Crawford. My dad is a senator. He'll bury your family. Does that sound like helpful advice to you? Madison's face flushed slightly but her entitled attitude remained intact. Your Honor, I was upset when I wrote those messages. Jessica was threatening me with a lawsuit over an accident, and I was defending myself. I was just trying to make her understand that going after my family wasn't a smart move. My father has worked very hard to build his reputation and his network, and I was simply explaining that she should think carefully before trying to damage that. Judge Judy's patience, legendary though it was, had reached its absolute limit. Let me understand this correctly, Ms. Crawford. You destroyed your roommate's property worth thousands of dollars. You refused to pay for any of it. You threatened her family with political retaliation using your father's position as a weapon. And somehow, in your mind, you believe that you are the victim in this situation. Madison rolled her eyes in the most dramatic fashion imaginable, a gesture so exaggerated that it would later become a meme shared millions of times across social media. Your Honor, I really think this whole thing is being blown completely out of proportion. It was a party. Stuff got broken. That happens literally every weekend at every college in America. We're treating this like I committed some major crime when really it's just normal college drama that should have been handled between roommates without involving the legal system. Can we just wrap this up? I have dinner plans this evening at 7 and I really need to get going soon. The audacity of that statement hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't quite exploded yet. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed dangerously. As Madison spoke those words, her hand drifted to her purse and she pulled out her phone, casually checking the screen while Judge Judy was literally in the middle of addressing her. The courtroom collectively held its breath. Judge Judy's voice erupted like a volcano. Excuse me. Miss Crawford, are you on your phone right now? Are you actually checking your phone while I am speaking to you in my courtroom? Madison looked up with an expression of surprise, as if she genuinely couldn't understand what the problem was. I was just checking the time, Your Honor. I told you, I have plans tonight and I need to know if I'm running late. Judge Judy's voice rose to a level that made even the bailiff straighten his posture. Put that phone away immediately. This is a court of law, not your personal living room. Madison let out an exaggerated, long-suffering sigh that could be heard throughout the entire courtroom. She made a dramatic show of slowly placing her phone back into her designer handbag, moving as if she were performing the most burdensome task ever assigned to a human being. As she set the phone down, she muttered under her breath just loud enough for the microphones to pick up, "This is so ridiculous." Judge Judy's head snapped up. What did you just say, Miss Crawford? Madison realized she'd been caught but decided that doubling down was somehow the smart play. Nothing, Your Honor. Judge Judy stood up from her bench, something she rarely did, and her voice became deadly quiet in that way that was somehow more terrifying than yelling. No, I heard you clearly. You said this is ridiculous. You think my courtroom is ridiculous? You think these legal proceedings are ridiculous? Instead of backtracking, instead of apologizing, instead of showing even a shred of the wisdom that 23 years on this planet should have taught her, Madison made the fatal mistake that would define this entire case. She looked Judge Judy directly in the eyes and said, Your Honor, honestly. Kind of, yeah. This is a minor roommate dispute over some damaged electronics being treated like it's a federal case or something. My father deals with actual important matters every single day in the state Senate. Real issues that affect thousands of people. This is just petty drama between college roommates. It's beneath someone of my background to even be here dealing with this. The courtroom erupted in shocked gasps and murmurs. Jessica's eyes went wide with disbelief. The bailiff's mouth actually fell open. Judge Judy began to respond, her face a mask of controlled judicial fury, but Madison, in a moment of staggering stupidity that would be replayed millions of times on YouTube, actually interrupted her. And can I just say that I think the way this has been handled is completely unfair to me and my family? Judge Judy's voice cut through the courtroom like thunder. No. You may not just say anything. You do not interrupt a judge. You do not check your phone during proceedings. And you certainly do not tell me that your father's political career makes you too important to face consequences for your actions. Madison, incredibly, rolled her eyes again and muttered, whatever. That single word, that dismissive, entitled, bratty whatever, was the sound of a young woman's carefully constructed privileged life beginning to crumble. Judge Judy slowly sat back down, and the entire courtroom recognized that something significant was about to happen. When Judge Judy got quiet like this, when her voice dropped and her movements became deliberate, experienced court watchers knew that devastation was coming. Miss Crawford, Judge Judy began with deadly calm, in my 25 years on this bench, I have seen thousands of defendants. I have seen criminals, I have seen con artists, I have seen people who made terrible mistakes. But I have never, in all my years, encountered such blatant disrespect, such arrogant entitlement, such complete disregard for the judicial process, and such total lack of personal responsibility as I am witnessing from you right now. Madison, instead of looking appropriately concerned or frightened, actually smirked. It was a small, superior smile that suggested she still believed her father's political connections would ultimately protect her from any real consequences. Your Honor, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I really don't think I deserve to be lectured like I'm some kind of criminal. I'm a Yale graduate from a respected family. My father is Senator Robert Crawford, and he has connections throughout the entire legal system in this state. I'm sure he's going to be very interested to hear about how I've been treated in this courtroom today. The threat was clear, and Madison delivered it with the confidence of someone who had never faced a real consequence in her entire life. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, and her voice became ice-cold and perfectly calculated. Ms. Crawford, let me educate you about something very important. Your father's position as a state senator means absolutely nothing in my courtroom. Political connections don't buy you respect. They don't erase your responsibility for your actions. And they certainly don't exempt you from the consequences of destroying someone else's property and then threatening them like some kind of mob boss. I have looked at the photographs of the destruction you caused. I have read your threatening text messages where you told Ms. Martinez that your father would bury her family. I have watched you disrespect these proceedings from the moment you walked through that door. You checked your phone while I was speaking. You rolled your eyes multiple times. You interrupted me. You told me this courtroom was beneath you. And most damning of all, I have listened to your complete and utter lack of remorse for what you did to another human being who trusted you as a roommate and a friend. Madison opened her mouth to respond, but Judge Judy held up one finger in a gesture that commanded instant silence. I'm not finished. Ms. Crawford, I find in favor of the plaintiff, Jessica Martinez, for the full amount of $8,500. That includes $2,000 for the destroyed laptop, $800 for the textbooks, $1,200 for damaged personal items including irreplaceable family photographs, and $4,500 in punitive damages. Madison barely reacted to the financial judgment because in her mind, Daddy's checkbook could solve this problem just like it had solved every other problem in her privileged life. But Judge Judy wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Furthermore, Ms. Crawford, those punitive damages are specifically assessed for your threatening behavior, your harassment of the plaintiff, and your abuse of your father's political position to intimidate someone who simply wanted to be compensated for property you destroyed. This judgment will be publicly filed with special notation describing your threats involving political retaliation. Madison's confident expression flickered for the first time. Wait, Your Honor, please, that will be public record. People will be able to see it. Judge Judy's response was swift and merciless. Yes, Ms. Crawford. The public has a right to know when someone abuses political connections to threaten and intimidate citizens. In fact, I'm ordering that a copy of this judgment, along with your threatening text messages and the complete court transcript, be sent directly to the Connecticut State Senate Ethics Committee and to the press office of the Connecticut Attorney General. Madison's face went completely white. All the color drained from her cheeks as the reality of the situation finally began to penetrate her bubble of entitlement. Your Honor, you can't do that. That will hurt my father's career. He didn't do anything wrong. This will damage his reputation. Judge Judy's voice cut through her protests like a knife through butter. You hurt your father's career the moment you decided to weaponize his name and position against an innocent person. You damaged his reputation when you sent text messages threatening to use his political power to destroy a family's small business. Your father built his career on public service, and you used it as a tool for intimidation and bullying. Any damage to his reputation is entirely your fault. But Judge Judy still wasn't finished delivering consequences. You will also write a formal, written apology to Ms. Martinez. It will be submitted to this court within 30 days. The apology will acknowledge what you did, take full responsibility without excuses, and express genuine remorse. If you fail to submit this apology within 30 days, the judgment automatically increases by $5,000. Madison started to protest, but Judge Judy continued right over her. Additionally, You will post a public apology on the same Instagram account where you bragged about the party that destroyed Ms. Martinez's property. The post will include a clear photograph of your face and will say, "I was wrong. I destroyed my roommate's property, refused to pay for it, and threatened her family. I owe Jessica Martinez a sincere apology for my entitled behavior and abuse of my father's political position." This post will remain on your account for a minimum of 1 year. Madison jumped to her feet so quickly that her chair nearly toppled over behind her. "You can't make me post that on my Instagram. Do you have any idea how many followers I have? I have 45,000 followers. My social media presence is part of my influencer brand. I have sponsorship deals. This will completely destroy everything I've built." Judge Judy's response was devastating in its simplicity. Good. Maybe losing your influencer status will teach you that actions have consequences and that being internet famous doesn't make you a good person. Ms. Crawford, you had choices at every step of this situation. You could have not thrown the party. You could have paid for the damage when it happened. You could have apologized sincerely to Ms. Martinez. You could have taken responsibility. You could have treated this court with respect. Instead, you chose arrogance, threats, and entitlement at every single turn. Your father may be a senator, but you, Ms. Crawford, are simply a young woman who destroyed someone's property, refused to pay for it, threatened an innocent person's family, and then showed contempt for the legal system that exists to protect people from bullies exactly like you. Money and political connections don't change those basic facts. Madison's voice became desperate and whiny. "Your Honor, please, I'm sorry now. I'm really, really sorry. Can't we work something out? I'll pay whatever you want. I'll apologize privately to Jessica. Just please don't make this public. Please don't ruin my social media." Judge Judy delivered the final blow with perfect calm. "Ms. Crawford, your apology means absolutely nothing when it only appears after consequences have been announced. Words are cheap. Your actions will speak for you now. Payment is due within 30 days. Written apology due within 30 days. Instagram post due within 7 days. All court documents forwarded to the Senate Ethics Committee immediately. Judgment is granted in full favor of the plaintiff. We're done here." The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. Madison stood frozen in complete shock, finally understanding that Daddy's money and political connections couldn't save her this time. Jessica was crying tears of relief and gratitude, finally vindicated after being threatened and bullied. Within 24 hours, the video of the case went viral across every social media platform. "Senator's daughter gets destroyed by Judge Judy" trended on YouTube with over 15 million views in the first week alone. Madison's Instagram followers found the old party post, screenshot it before she could delete it, and the hashtag entitled Madison became the #1 trending topic on Twitter. Memes flooded the internet showing Madison's eye rolls with captions like "Do you know who my father is?" and "When privilege meets reality." Senator Crawford released a public statement saying, "My daughter's actions do not reflect my values or the principles of public service I have dedicated my life to upholding. She will face the full consequences of her actions, and I support Judge Judy's judgment completely." Madison posted the required Instagram apology 7 days later, and the comments were 98% negative. She lost over 40,000 followers overnight. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the smallest courtrooms, and Madison Crawford learned that respect, responsibility, and basic human decency can't be bought, borrowed, or inherited from your parents' success. If you enjoyed this story of justice served, you can support me by liking it and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. My loyal viewers, if you enjoy courtroom drama like this, you can check out the other videos on my channel. See you in the next video. Stay healthy.